Am I audible to everyone? The last persons. Is it audible? Because I am not good at using mic, so I'm asking. Am I audible to everyone? Okay. Respected principal, Acharya sir, Srikanth sir, and all respected faculty, and all my dear friends. Good morning, everyone. So I am Santosh from degree third year. So today I stand before you to discuss about a topic that is more fascinating and deeply transformative. That is a topic which captured the imaginations worldwide. And that's a topic which raised critical questions about our existence and about our own future. And it is a topic which simply refers the simulation of human intelligence, and that is nothing but artificial intelligence, commonly referred as the AI. First, let me give a simple definition of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence simply refers to the simulation of the human intelligence, learning, problem solving, decision making, using vast amount of data. That is simply artificial intelligence. So, coming to our first topic, using artificial intelligence in the warfare is like using a double-edged sword in a war. You know, double-edged sword, it can cause both some, it can be sometimes favorable and sometimes it may be unfavorable. Same like AI. So just imagine a world with full of autonomous drones guided by artificial intelligence. They can execute complex military operations without any human intervention. That world is no longer a fantasy. Artificial intelligence is creating a new battlefield, it is creating a new war. So, for example, there are autonomous weapons, autonomous devices. They are simply designed by AI just to detect, target, and to neutralize the threats. So, these weapons are designed in a way in these three stages: detect, target, and to neutralize. Let's move on from. So, artificial intelligence even provides some revolutionary possibilities in the warfare. There are many concerns and some serious ethical and security concerns regarding artificial intelligence. So let's move from warfare to the, let's move on from battlefield to the boardroom. You know, boardroom, that is the workspace, the place where we work. AI is going to change the complete workspace and the future of the work. There are many impacts of artificial intelligence in the field of workspace. The first one is automation and efficiency. There are some several daily tasks that we need to do. Just like suppose for example, data entry, and also some customer services jobs like chatbot. Why there is a need of human for the purpose of chatbot, for the purpose of customer service? AI can handle all these services continuously day by day, thereby increasing more efficient and effective productivity. And also coming to personalization, AI can analyze our own preferences, it can analyze our patterns so that it can provide us some needed guidelines and needed recommendations it will provide. So this is the biggest benefit of artificial intelligence. It can easily it can easily analyze our data. So, and one of the most important thing regarding workspace is augmentation of the human capabilities. Artificial intelligence augments the human capabilities, it will increase the human capabilities. But even artificial intelligence shows significant impact on the workspace. There is a one question regarding the transformation of jobs. If artificial intelligence came into existence, then it will displace some jobs. On one hand, it will displace some jobs, but on the double side of the coin, there is a point that it will provide some job opportunities which are highly skilled and professional. It will create some high professional and skilled job opportunities, because as you all know that in this modern world, skills are very necessary to execute any work. So, but there is one question regarding workspace is, what about the displaced jobs? What about the left out jobs? Is artificial intelligence widening the economic divides? And also regarding AI is creating a world where some individuals have the opportunity, some individuals are getting benefits regarding these technological advancements, and some are lagging behind. So this is the biggest issue regarding the implementation of AI in the workspace. Let's talk about moral maze of artificial intelligence. You know, moral maze, which means sometimes we try to do good things but results in bad outcomes. So just like artificial intelligence, we might regulate it properly, but at the end there is a possibility, there are some chances that we might end at bad outcomes. So some of the main ethical concerns are privacy issues. So, artificial intelligence continuously takes data from us, often our personal data. It heavily relies on the data. Whatever inputs we give, when we interact with AI, it continuously relies on the data. So, which arises some privacy concerns. And also regarding automation and accountability. AI is continuously evolving autonomously, which means there is no need of human intervention in the implementation of artificial intelligence. Suppose let's take a case. Suppose there is an AI upgraded vehicle. What if this AI upgraded vehicle take a poor decision and met with an accident? If AI causes an accident, then there is a case. Who is responsible for the accident? Is the manufacturer of the car, or the programmer of the car, or AI itself? It's an ethical dilemma. So it's just an example. Just like this, there are many examples regarding the implementation of AI. This is one of the most important ethical concern. And one more important thing is, so as I speak to you, I would like to ensure that artificial intelligence is not just an abstract technological concept, right? It's a real, tangible, and present abstractly everywhere, in every field, in every sector of the economy, right? So, as an individual, you must know the both benefits and also pitfalls of the artificial intelligence. So, as I conclude, let me leave you with a one single statement. Artificial intelligence is a tool. Like any other tool, it's just a powerful one. It can build or destroy. It can have the capability to uplift, and also at the same time, it has the capability to suppress. So the responsibility lies with us. The governments, the business, and we, the individual, have the responsibility to know both the benefits and the pitfalls of artificial intelligence. Let's ensure that artificial intelligence serves us and not the other way around. Thank you.
A very good morning to everyone, those who present here, respected principal sir, and all my teachers, and my dear fellow students. I am very thankful and grateful here to get this opportunity to speak in front of you all. I am Balwada Saishri of degree final year. As we all know that instructions of a college is to not use the mobile phones itself. But we, the final years, recently got permitted to use the mobile phones, which is a primary source of digital information. Generally, we get a step forward to use and to connect ourselves to this dynamic world outside. In this process, mobile phones in our hands is the primary and the first source which we get even often to use in front of everyone to connect ourselves in this recent world. But this was becoming a silent pandemic in the recent worlds which promoted from ourselves to everyone. Initially, the word digitalization is a part of 1950s and which was passed all over the world. And this was referred to as digital transformation. This was even bounced back in 1990s due to the advent of web, which changed our way of work, education, and enactment of ourselves. And this changed the lead of ourselves and increased many organizations in themselves to prove their accessibility, availability, and increasement of themselves in their own opinions. In this aspect, this digitalization has driven for the good use. But unknowingly ourselves, we are going through the addiction of themselves. We are having the mobile phones itself, which we can use for many purposes. Means we can use for our study purpose, we can use for game purpose, or any other purposes. But we are here, most of us were spending our time in making scrolling of social media, or rather than playing outside, we are playing in the form of virtual games, etc. And as well as the lack of parenting, the lack of supervision, the problem of escapism from the real world, and the problem of using social media means we finding ourselves in the media rather than finding in our own capacities itself. We are not developing our individual capacities, our individual aspects, rather than developing the social media and rather than making them to end as it. As everyone know the story of Mahatma Gandhi, I think so. Like one day a woman has gone near to Mahatma Gandhi and she actually requested to make her daughter to not eat the jaggery itself. Means she is so addicted to eat the jaggery itself. So one woman has gone near to Mahatma Gandhi and said, so please make my child to not to avoid jaggery and make her limited to eat. So Mahatma Gandhi has said, let me get a time of 1 week, please. And after 1 week, when the woman along with her child had gone to Mahatma Gandhi, then he said, then he made the child to not to eat. Then the woman asked it simply, why you have taken 1 week of time? He simply said, the problem is within me. I should do it and I should say it. So the probably I am here to standing. You can use the gadgets, but limit your use and make it use. Thank you.
I am the participant of public speaking. The topic that I have selected is tackling digital addiction, the silent pandemic in today's world. Today, I want to talk about the pandemic that affecting worldwide. We think a pandemic is caused by a virus, but there is also a pandemic that is caused by our own actions. Yes, today I'm going to talk about the pandemic that is caused by our own actions, and that is also hiding in a plain sight. That is digital addiction. Digital addiction refers to the excessive and compulsive use of the digital devices like computers, televisions, smartphones, etc. This interferes our daily life activities, relationships, works, and all our well-beings. This is a growing concern that affects people of all ages from all parts of their life. Personally, I have seen my friends and family members being addicted to these digital devices. Personally, I have seen most of my friends checking the notifications even during the conversation of certain things. This addiction does not make us standardly focusing on the devices, but also it extends to the standing on social media addiction, online addiction, gaming addiction, online shopping addiction, etc. And these are all hard to break. Few of the surveys have shown that people using the internet has grown by 1.3 billion since 2017, and this trend is expected to continue even another survey has shown that teens spend more than 8 hours per day on the screens. And another survey has shown that people spend 6 hours and 42 minutes per day on the screens, which reduces the face-to-face interactions, which causes the health consequences, and even it affects our academic and work-related issues. It also affects our daily life activities and reduces our efficiency of works, and it makes us to neglect our responsibilities. Digital devices, even for this, we can use these digital devices for our advantage. Even it helps us a lot to get the knowledge. So let's all work together to create a peaceful digital landscape. Thanking you.
Good morning to everyone. This is Sai Teja from degree first year. I here before you to say about the topic of simultaneous elections. So what is simultaneous elections? The simultaneous elections also known as the one nation, one election. Simply say that the national level election and the state level election both held in one election is known as the simultaneous elections. Recently, we read about the top article of HLC. HLC means High Level Committee, which was headed by the Ramnath Kovind, former president of Ramnath Kovind, in the year of in the recently 23 September 2024, 23, and coming to backward. The first general election was held in 1962 to 1967. In this election was held by simultaneously. So by due to the some premature and
dissolution. Some of the election were held in the various times, but in the 2019, the four states of the assembly elections were held in the same year with the pros. Coming to the India, there is more population, so it worth every election, for every Lok Sabha election, it worth 4,400 crores. So for every election, it worth 400 crores. For then what about the state elections? The state, it will worth more than 400 crores for every state elections. So by conducting the simultaneous elections, it may reduce the expenditure of the government, and also it may reduce the manpower, and it will increase the administrative of machinery and administrative machinery on nations. And also by it was implemented, implementing the simultaneous elections, it receives the amending the articles like 83, 85, 172, 175, 174, and additionally another article is 356. And also challenges. According to the India, there is more population. Yeah, so it worth more expenditure. Thank you.
My name is P. Hashwardhan Raj from I1. Today I am honored to say my topic SC and ST classification and de-reservation. In why India the reservations were introduced to rectify the historical and past injustice towards the backward classes in India, and to give them equal opportunity and equal representation in the society, to balance them, and also equal in the society. Now in the let us take the constitutional base where the first reservation has been started. In the Poonam Pact of 1932, the conversation between Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi signed that Ambedkar demanded some electoral seats in the Legislative Assembly of British India Parliament, and Gandhi had accepted to it, and he given for Dalit community a special status in the society. And also after later in 2005, the Supreme Court has been ruled out in the case of E.V. Chinnaya versus the state of Andhra Pradesh for the scheduled caste and scheduled is not a homogeneous class, and SCs and STs are not be furtherly subdivided. Now, as per the present scenario, the Supreme Court has been ruled out in August 21st in 2024 at the state of Punjab. V. Devendra Singh has been said that subclassification of SCs and STs are, which is mentioned in the constitutional, and recently the 104th amendment, the NDA government has been said that they passed the reservations still up to 10 years forward, ensure them. Enough. Now the subclassification of SCs and STs is justified or not. The SCs and STs which had been justified in the society, some of them said that reservations are needed, and some says the reservations are not needed.
Hello everyone, this is Kirti from Inter first year. I enthusiastically to speak about the simultaneously elections, is also known as the one nation and one election. we all know that in recently this was in news because the push from the prime minister, it was in news. So we basically know about that the who implemented this simultaneous election. Firstly, the KL Advani, the former vice president of India, that he implemented this simultaneous elections. So the simultaneous elections is also known as the election, the holding the state assemblies and Lok Sabha elections were conducted in together. That means uh, if the elections was conducted to Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies also conduct the elections. Basically, we critics were thinking that it would be danger to like expenditure loss, that all thing. But the um, former Prime Minister of India, Shekhawat, he said that this simultaneous election will taken very easily, but if we implemented the no confidence motion, that means the provisions that provisions of no confidence motion. But the critics were criticized it with if it is implemented, the uh, people will lose their right to elect and dismiss the governance. But it is good, but the critics were criticized that would be rather important to the politicians were thinking it was great to not simultaneously elected. But this way can we know that for the expenditure, like we take that it creates more employment to in that procedure. The teachers were also in the elections, right? I think the simultaneous elections were good, but if they're taken the action like take care of that particular situations, if it was implemented, the politicians were accountable to people. That means there are it's a word to called the politicians on the toes. And recently in March 14 2024, the former prime minister president of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind sir, gave a book to for present president of India, Draupadi Murmu, has it contained 18,623 pages with 11 chapters and some excerpts. It detailed information of the law of commission. It was gave a report called 170th report, and that known for the parliamentary standard committee were interested to implemented this one nation one election, right? So we think that can anyone say that these elections were good or not? Is good for any pros or cons? Okay, it's good where the taken of the department or police or anything, we will take care of the provisions to conduct the elections, right? And we get back to KL Advani. He said these elections were good. We know that in 2014, the elections with Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies with I don't remember for some of that, Andhra Pradesh, Sikkim and Odisha, with the elections with these Lok Sabha elections. So After that, it was separated because of the dissolution of state. That means dissolution of it disrupted. Yes. I think it was enough. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning to all. My name is P. Davarsha. I am currently enrolled in intermediate first year. Today my topic is digital education in paradigm. Digital education is refers to the nature in the devices and tools which human lives is spoiled from this type of social medias and other communities. We should learn about the society in the digital communities. So, we want to know about our digital education, why this digital education is preventing in nowadays, is growing on and the affecting of all lives and relationships, destroying by this digital education. What we should prevent or measures take to be in digital education. Be aware of the digital education. And digital education is growing day by day in the society. They someone use bad and other good ways. For example, we are civil aspirants. We can use this social media or this communities digital. We can use properly on this way, but someone will use this on others way. So what we have to use, we should know in our brain. And be aware of this digital education. We should aware in society. We should create awareness on this. The problem of this digital education.
The topic which I had chosen is simultaneous elections. What's the idea of simultaneous elections? The idea of simultaneous elections was mooted by the Law Commission and Election Commission of India 1982. And the elections get started in the year 1952, and from the first 4 years, from 1952 to 1967, the elections were held in simultaneous manner. But however, after the 4 years, the elections were not held in the simultaneous manner due to the dissolved prematurity. And what's the case of the simultaneous elections? The desirability of the simultaneous elections can be discussed by governance, administrative convenience, and social cohesion. And the estimation of the cost that for the local Lok Sabha is 4,000 rupees. 4,000 rupees for Lok Sabha by the central government, and for the state government also as by the state size. And however, these were the official expenditures, and these official rather than these official expenditures, there are more expenditures which were spent by the members of the parties, and this should be reduced by the simultaneous elections. Next, for the 4 to 5 year, for 4 to 5 elections were held in every year. Due to this, the political parties or presidents were in the permanent campaign mode. So due to this, there is a difficulty for making laws or governance. And the model code of conduct enforced during the election process was nearly from 45 to 60 days, and no any policies or schemes were announced in that time by the any central or state government. And next, coming to administrative machinery, that it is get slowed down in the districts because of the elections process, because the primary focus is on the conduct of elections. And coming to paramilitary sources that were withdrawn from the locations and that were posted or deployed to the concerned state where the election is getting, and in that place for the smooth conduct of elections. And next is that due to this frequent elections, there is effect on that administrative efficiency. And next, coming to that high stake elections, due to this every year was holding in the various states. Because of these, the parties were campaigning and they're spending their own money, and due to this, the spending of that in that elections, due to the spending of these elections, there is more chances of destruction in simultaneous elections. And next is that what's the challenges involved here in this simultaneous elections? The challenges were that as India is a federal country where by the sub-constitutional proportions, and various states has various set of issues, and various set of issues. Due to this, they will have different that is different from one another. And next is that union and state government has their own set of responsibilities and powers towards the electorate, and due to this, to the electorate, and by the division of powers in the constitution. And next is that due to these simultaneous elections by the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, they're having some national issues which is overshadowing the religion and the state specific issues. And next is that due to this, the national parties having the significant advantage over the regional parties, and the by-elections which is necessitated by death or resignation or disqualification, that the election should be held clubbed together, and that should be conducted once in every year. And coming to that parliamentary democratic countries like South Africa, Sweden and Germany, that they're having their tenure of their legislatures. And in South Africa and Sweden, that the presidents were elected by the national assemblies, and the prime minister were elected by the legislatures respectively. And next, what were the ideal solutions for these simultaneous elections were the solutions that we are having the lack of general agreement between the political parties. Due to this, the simultaneous elections were not conducting in a same. Okay. And the solution for these is all the political parties should have general agreement between them, and they should have general agreement between them. This is the solution for that simultaneous elections.
Okay, my topic is National Educational Policy 2020. And this policy, this aims to develop our Indian educational system. It aims to transform our Indian education system into progressive and an equitable one and modern one also. It specially focuses in the primary associated schools, and it specially focuses in low literacy levels and the numeracy outcomes associated in the primary schools. And it also focuses in secondary schools, that dropout levels. It is to reduce the dropout levels in secondary schools. And nextly, it seeks to introduce multi approach for the higher education systems. It has came into the right time, and it is one of the very noble objective for us. And the success of this national educational policy and implementation has a large extent. Implementation has a large extent, and this implementation is followed by government, schools, universities, and all the colleges. It is really good to face and follow it. And there is a and the highlight of this is it is a positive reimagination. It is a positive reimagination of India's existing educational regime, and it has a very appreciable and impressive proposition in the country. And it has a holistic learning that includes integrated, engaging, and immersive, and also it includes arts and aesthetics too. From the foundational levels, young students, they are exposed to multiple languages, and this is known as multilingualism. It benefits every student. Multilingualism, it really benefits to every student. And students in India, our classical language is Sanskrit. This Sanskrit will be offered to every level of schools and higher educations as an essential one. All students also can choose Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Odia as their optional language. It seeks to expand our educational system, and it seeks to facilitate many educational systems like formal and non-formal education systems. In formal education system, it is limited up to books and instructions. But this policy, it aims to take this learning outside the four walls of the classroom and encourage the students to imbibe the studies and to introduce the real world for the students.
I'm Tejasvi, and let me start my speech with a quote. Democracy is the only system that questions that powers that be, if they are powers that ought to be. Now, this is a beautiful quote by Sidney Harris, I believe. So before we just get into the nitty-gritty of what are simultaneous elections and why should we care and all that, let me just take a step back and say, what are elections? Elections are a democratic process through which people, specifically people of India, they step forward to choose our political leaders. What are simultaneous elections? Any ideas? All right, I don't want to waste time, so I'll just step forward and say that simultaneous elections are where Lok Sabha elections, state level elections, and local body elections are all synchronized. They are to happen at the same time with the same interval of 5 years. Now, is it legit? Has it happened before? Yes. Until 1961, India happened to have simultaneous elections, but afterwards, because of coalition governments, because of government collapses and all that, and afterwards, the by-elections, the sync fell off. But still, Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and Odisha still have synchronized elections with the Lok Sabha. And of course, there are other countries like South Africa and Sweden and UK who also hold synchronized elections. Now, that's all fine. You've given a lot of information, Tejasvi. Why should we care? Why are we speaking over here about simultaneous elections? A boring project, to be honest. Obviously, one of my friends would say, we are civil aspirants, we need to learn it. So yes, I respect your opinion. And yeah, maybe that's why we need to learn it. But above all, I say we need to learn about it because we are the future generation and we are the future workforce. And because of that, we have to learn about it so that, hey, what if this simultaneous election happens? Is it going to be beneficial for us in our future? That's the question that we need to ask. For this, I only have, as the answer, I have one quote by Martin Luther King. Our lives will begin to end the day we become silent on matters, on things that matter. Now, on that, before I digress, let me just step back and get on to the topic itself. Let's discuss the pros and cons of simultaneous elections. Pros, governance. It's said that because of simultaneous elections, the administration will have more time to focus on people instead of just being distracted by one election or the other because of the national election or the state election and all that. That is one of the main points. The second point, reduction of resources and costs. While between you, me, and the Hindu paper, there is no data to support that it will actually reduce the costs. But it is theorized that holding the elections at the same time would take less resources and less costs. Other theories suggest that because of this, the state finance will be stable and the whole process of election will be much more simplified. Coming to the last point, it would be that the political corruption, the last minute freebies or last minute fast policies to attract crowd and attract voter bank are less likely to be more as important if the whole election is simultaneous or synchronized. Obviously, these are the pros. Now let's go on to the other side of the coin. What are the cons? Why should we not like this concept? On the face of it itself, the first concern we would have is the concern of democracy, of a constitution, of the spirit of federalism. There are, when it comes down to it, what is federalism? It is, as we learned in polity, to have a distribution of power between state and, to have the distribution of power between state and union, so that they are both autonomous, both level of governments. Now, because of simultaneous election, the more importance is given to nation. And if more importance is given to nation, the state autonomy is likely to decrease. And that is one of the concerns. The other concerns with constitution is that it will require amendments of many articles, like Article 3 and Article 172 at the face of it. And moving on, there are also concerns that it might lead to single party dominance. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but I'll leave it up to your imagination as to what it might be. And we are not even counting the economic, legal, and logistical concerns. Where will so many electronic voting machines come from? There are so many voters across India, and if we conduct one vote, one election throughout the nation at the same time, is it logistically possible in a country that's as huge as India, with as huge of a population? Obviously, those are the cons. And I'll leave it up to your imagination as the future aspirants as to what this concept is, what if it's actually feasible in our future and all that. I'll leave it up to your thinking capacity. Now, moving forward, what is the way forward? Is it if it's actually feasible and all that? We can learn, as taking a page out of our constituent makers, from other places like Germany, Article 67, constructive vote of non-confidence, which suggests that incumbent government choose the successor. But those are all logistical stuff when it comes to the more policy nitty-gritties. On a more simpler way, the way forward is filled with pilot projects so that we can understand and experiment to see if does the system properly suit India. We have a huge learning curve that we are learning from. India is a learning country. It's one of the reasons why we have one of the longest living constitutions. So we are learning. Of course, there are also other possibilities that can replace the whole simultaneous one nation, one election idea, like staggered elections, which are kind of similar to Rajya Sabha. I'm sure you all have an idea, where the terms are more fixed, and from the fixed terms, different people have different times. But that's the idea of staggered elections, and there's also suggestions about electoral reforms from Election Commission, and more importantly, public awareness. We are the future. Now, I would like to end the speech with a quote. This time, a powerful quote from a powerful man. It's from Abraham Lincoln. Ballot is more powerful than a bullet. It is ironic in hindsight, but I suppose it fits the agenda. Now, before I exit, I would like to wish you all a happy Gandhi Jayanti. And on this eve, I urge you all to think more, to discuss more, and to step forward more. Thank you for the opportunity. Signing off.
So, public speech runner Santosh. So, obvious winner Tejas.
Thank you, sir.